What university does as one of their core business model is really do research. And ultimately, research is a process where you turn money into knowledge. That's what research is. And the role of industry is really then to take some of those ideas, some of those outputs of those researches, and turn them, commercialize them, and turn them back into money. Now, if that works perfectly, the ratio of money putting in and money coming out, generating income, would be a very good ratio. But often, it doesn't work that way. And especially in the UK, although we are very, very good in producing very good research outputs, and we punch way above our weight in the UK from universities in terms of our research outputs and the impact factors that comes out of our research. We are one of the world's best, the universities in the UK. But often we are not very good at that second half of that innovation cycle, which is we're not very good in taking that research and turning that back into money again, because we're not very good at commercializing. And a great example is, I don't know if you've heard of the wonder material that is graphene, invented in the UK. But if you look at the overall patent that has been filed, UK patent filing is a very, very small proportion of a material that potentially can change the world that was from the UK itself. So, and that has an impact in the economy itself. And this is an estimation that you can look at, that we lose an awful lot of money because we don't commercialize. We don't make use of the research outputs that our universities and organizations are developing. And this is the impact. If you do it right, what happens? More than half of America's growth comes from industry that didn't exist about a decade back. Look at the social media. Look at some of the new industries that are coming up, creating jobs, presenting huge valuation, and creating real value for shareholders and the country in general. And that's the impact of innovation. If we do innovation in the right way, we can change the world. We can make a huge impact. And we can make a huge impact on the economy in general. But innovation is not a straightforward process, because it is true, the more we try to innovate, the more likely we are to fail, because innovation is fraught with risks. The success depends on multiple different things. But one thing is for sure, that the less we try to innovate, we are absolutely certain to fail. If we stop innovating, or if our industry stops innovating, if we stop innovating in every aspect of our life, we are not going to be successful. So innovation, it will be a critical part of overall industry structure, what we do in industry, what we do in our life, and that has to be essential in going forward. But not all innovation is going to make money. So these are two granted patents, and probably you will appreciate and probably also confer that none of these patents, two US patents, were ever going to be world-beating products. One is for aiding childbirth, and I'm sure most people would be horrified by looking at that device, and one was a mousetrap. So not all inventions, not all research is commercializable. And so we have to be very focused in what we do and how we do it. And the principles that one of the most eminent scientists and inventors of the 19th century pointed out was innovation needs to be market-led. If we can solve somebody's problem, if we can solve an issue that exists, you're more likely to be successful. And so Thomas Edison scored that looking at a problem, understanding a problem, and then inventing something to really solve that problem is a great way of looking at it. But I'm going to now talk about my own experience in Kromek, which is a company I'm the CEO of and ran for the last 12 years, where we developed some products. We operate in 3 markets: medical imaging, security screening, and nuclear detection. And I'm going to talk about one family of products. And you'll see that although the product is pretty much the same, the journey towards making that product successful was slightly different, and the impacts were different. Turning the clock back, March 2011, and we all woke up to the terrible news of the earthquake in Japan and the resulting tsunami. And the devastation was absolutely horrific, not only to the lives, people who lost their lives, but also people who survived. And one of the consequences of that tsunami was that one of the power plants in Fukushima had a major problem in terms of the destruction of the cores. Now, as a result, immediately the aftermath of that sort of incident of that nuclear power plant going down, there was heightened anxiety within the population about radiation levels in their immediate surroundings. And so people were very concerned in the environment they were living in. They wanted to know more what was going on. And so there was a market created for personal dosimeters, people trying to measure the radiation dose that was there around them to make sure their family was safe. They were living in a safe environment. So as a response, what we did was most of those instruments that are being sold in Japan at the time were only providing a very limited amount of information, which was dose, how much radiation is around you. But we thought and believed, and we joined up with a very large Japanese corporation to provide a next level of capability and say, yes, we can provide you the knowledge about how much dose is around you, but also we will provide you of where that dose is coming from. What are the materials that are emitting those doses? So a very advanced, sophisticated piece of instrumentation brought down where people could use it with everyday mobile phones, keep a record of it, and they could map it, they could geotag it, put it on their web server and look at how things are evolving. But we were not particularly successful. The product didn't sell very well in Japan, not in huge quantities that we expected. And really, when we look back and analyze what happened, because there was a market, people were selling these devices, personal dosimeters, but our product didn't sell. Now, few things that we understood and realized and analyzed when we really did the postmortem. First was timing. Timing wasn't right. We were too late in the market. By the time our product came to the market, the anxiety levels had already dropped down. People were feeling safe. People were not that worried about what was around them. So timing was a very important issue. But secondly, although we saw a gap in the market, there was a gap for providing more information to people, probably the market within that gap was not particularly great. Now, a very common example is, if you travel on the roads, you will see a lot of, an obvious gap for three-wheeled vehicles. So there's plenty of cars with four wheels and plenty of motorbikes with two wheels. There's not very many three-wheeled vehicles, not any actually in the Western world. So there's obviously a gap in the market. But the reason why there are no three-wheeled vehicles is because there is no market in that gap. So it's often we get too dragged around looking at gaps in the market. But what we should be looking at is there a need in the market? Now, put it in a different context. Post 9/11, we all live in a world which has changed quite dramatically in terms of our security environment. And the responsibilities that has been put on to security agencies around the world and industry in general is very strong and very, very hard in terms of the rate of innovation has to go on at a really, really fast pace to keep up with the emerging and changing nature of threats. Now, one of those threats is threats from nuclear terrorism. So dirty bombs, conventional explosives mixed with some nuclear material can cause havoc, can cause political havoc in terms of its impact on a nation, on a city, or a country. So we, together with the U.S. Department of Defense, DARPA, one of their agencies, took that Red Angel platform and transform that into a slightly different looking device, but very similar concept, providing much more information about dose, about where that dose is coming from, geotagging, and with the partners of other performers within that contract, providing a capability to map an area. And that product is successful. That product, within its first 6 months, has been more successful than the product of the very same family a few years back in Japan. Now, there's a lesson to be learned. It has to be market-driven. It has to be solving a problem that really needs to be solved, not what we perceive that needs to be solved. And the market tells us what that problem is. So, two very similar products, the level of innovation is exactly the same, the level of technology is exactly the same, one successful and one not successful. And often in technology-led businesses, which a lot of the innovative, technology-led businesses are, we often get very hung up on the impact and the importance of technology. I mean, I am a technologist at heart, but my main role is commercialization, and that's what I do as a day job. But when you really look at it, success in our environments, the success factors are way more, and the impact of the success factors are way more than just technology. There's many other factors like leadership, the ability to communicate, ability to negotiate, ability to understand an environment, and that's what makes either successful or not. So although we are a technology business, commercialization of technology is my day job, we also have to understand that technology alone can't make innovations successful. Thank you very much.